back to NIDE Talks. I'm Joshua Freitas with the National Institute for Dementia Education, and I have a special guest today, a family member who often shares stories and different insights that I find incredibly valuable. So today with me is I have Debbie, and Debbie, would you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, my name is Debbie, and I have a husband who, due to a traumatic brain injury, has developed end-stage Alzheimer's and is a resident here at the memory care. And I am so glad he's here.
And something else I have to add, Debbie, is getting to know you on a personal level too, is you're also a
Mm.
nurse. Can you tell us a little bit about your kind of past life as a nurse or a healthcare professional?
Yes, sir. I've been a nurse since 1976, so I'm older. And I had to retire at the time that he had his automobile accident and became full-time caregiver for him. So I've worked in the hospitals, I've worked in private schools, I've worked in the operating room. So this was just like a continuation of being in the medical field, but on a whole different level.
Fantastic. Throughout that time, as I know that you were the at-home caregiver and you're still the caregiver, is when did you know that you needed help? What were the signs for them to look for of like, okay, now it's time. I really do need somebody to be helping me with what comes next or how to navigate. When did you know?
Okay, so it'll be 6 years in 2 weeks since the accident. And initially, we thought things were going to be fine. So we went to the neurologist, and when his cognitive was down around 10 out of 30, I knew that there was a big issue then. In the meantime, when you're a full-time caregiver, you don't have any time for yourself. You let alone have to find time to even take a darn shower because you don't want to leave them alone. So I found out through the neurologist that in Orlando, where we live, that there are facilities. Once it's an adult day area, that they lock them in so that they can't wander. Well, I thought he was doing great there, and they just told me later on that he wasn't participating, but they loved him, and so they kept him because it gave me a break. It was when I found that he went to the bathroom in one of the buildings and decided to go out the side door and was down on Park Avenue area, that it was well beyond having to let him loose, so to speak. So that had me think, okay, time is limited. Um, and the physician said, why don't you do what you want to do? Like, enjoy life because there's no guarantees on anything. So we took a cruise to the British Isles, and I had a lot of family help lined up. And while we were on it to make memories, he came down with COVID. So now we're isolated and didn't get to complete half of it. And when we got back, because of the physical aspect of the virus, it also saw an increase in decline. And at that time, the neurologist said, you are past the point. You need to have him in a safe environment. We also had a swimming pool in the backyard. And because you can't have an alarm system because it would be set off all the time, he couldn't remember how to swim. And so I wasn't getting any sleep because I was having to always be aware of where he was. If he was restless or got up, then I'm up because I'm looking on the back porch to make sure he's not floating in the pool. I mean, it was awful. And my family members were trying to be extremely helpful, but the problem is that they had good intentions, but emotionally they couldn't handle it. My daughter has been a big supporter of it. So we kind of networked together as a twosome. And so we've been tackling this. When I got back and I found out that the adult daycare, they were locked down, but when they were trying to take somebody out in a wheelchair, he scooted out next to him. I'm like, okay, I got to find something. It was a God thing that I found Certus, to be honest. It's tough, but when I came here, I didn't feel like I was still in that hole. You feel like you're in a hole and somebody is throwing dirt in on top of you and you're drowning and you can't get out. That was my big light bulb moment when I walked in here. And I actually met you when I came in for a walkthrough to see what the facility looked like. And it was you talking to me that made me breathe. And that's the thing that we forget. We have to breathe. We have to take care of ourselves. And I wasn't able to do that anymore. And if I'm not good for anybody, not my kids, not even my loved one. So that's kind of was my light bulb moment.
You bring up a lot of things too. Something I see a lot is something called hypervigilance, where you were so on edge for so long that we're constantly. So you bring up that story of the pool, not being able to get sleep, and also the thing about like on an airplane, they tell you to put on your own mask before helping somebody else.
Yeah.
Is it almost sounded like you weren't able to do that at that point? Is that you had to
No.
basically throw your arms up and be like, okay, this is just what it is, until you found some solutions that could really work. You also bring up a
Yeah.
good point too. You and your daughter were a tag team, and I have to say,
Right.
when families work together, it makes a pretty big impact. If you could go back to your old self and be like, "Here's some advice," what advice would you give to a prior version of yourself before this even unfolded? Like, what things do you wish were in place, or that you might have done differently in the beginning?
I think the advice I would give myself would start even before this happened. And I think being prepared for the what ifs, because we live by the seat of our pants, and everything is nowadays instant gratification. And so the issue was we got married later, and so we're like the what ifs. What if we have this? What if that happens? So we took insurance. We have long-term care plan insurance. And we said, okay, let's tailor our wills, our POAs, so that if something were to happen, and because we're older, it could happen on the spur of the moment. We want to be prepared, plus having kids. Um, I think when it did happen, being a nurse, I kind of had an inkling because when the surgeon came in the hospital and said, "Well, I have some good news and I have some bad news," and I'm like, "Okay, so is the good news that you're not going to have to do surgery?" And he said, he looked at me and he goes, "You have some kind of medical background?" I said, "Yeah." And I said, "So he does have a brain bleed." And it was the brain bleed that did it. I don't think anything would have changed because it's almost like shaken baby syndrome, is what they compared it to. We did, I think, everything that we could, but it wasn't enough. The one thing I do think I should have pursued a little bit more would have been the therapy afterwards. We went to a physical and occupational setup, and they did walking the cones and checking his equilibrium. We did those puzzles where, Joe lives in the greenhouse and he drinks Pepsi, and, who is his neighbor? And you have to do all those little things. Um, it He could do those all in the beginning. This was a man that graduated with a physics major and could tell companies, did the numbers crunching, and now he couldn't even count pennies. I mean, it's just very sad. But I think the biggest take back from this whole thing is don't put off today what you want to do. I mean, life is so short that you need to take advantage of everything because we have no guarantees. Only God knows. And right now, do I question it at times? Yeah. Do I still have hard times dealing with this? Yes, I'm not perfect. But what I have found is, and especially dealing with him and being here, is that I am not alone. I see what I call newbies coming in, and I remember that look on their face. I remember the fact that you just want to cry, that you feel like nobody is experiencing what you're going through, but they are. And so I am starting to think, okay, what is my purpose now in life? And I think the thing that I came up with is that maybe based on my background is I feel like I need to be supportive. And I see new people coming in and I look at them and say, "Are you new here?" Yeah. Can I get you a cup of coffee or something? And then I put my hand on their shoulder and I talk to their loved ones because they are so focused on, I'm dumping them here. You're not dumping them here, but you feel like you are. But they're here, they're crying. Their loved one might be crying. I want to go home. And then what they don't realize is that as soon as they leave, their person is fine because they don't even remember that aspect of it. But we internalize the guilt so bad that we're hard on ourselves and we can't be. So we just need to make the most of the time that we do have and enjoy. I mean, my husband, I came up here yesterday. Did he know who I was? I don't think so. His sister was here. He keeps trying to interview her for a job. He doesn't know it's his sister. But the look at me and all of a sudden the light bulb moment, which are few and far between, he called me the queen. Oh, the queen is here. And I'm like, okay, he knows it's me. I said, well, you got that right because the princess is at work. So, and he started laughing. I have realized that taking pictures, having the technology of phones, phenomenal. Take pictures, take videos. It doesn't matter because you can do your own editing later if you want. But the fact is, when they're gone, you're going to want that last voice. You're going to want that last laugh. You're going to want them being goofy. And you get it, but you don't realize it until after the fact.
You bring up a really great thing too, is that a lot of people don't realize that people with dementia rely on sensory-based knowledge. And him calling you the queen, that is, oh, that's my wife. She's the boss. And
Yeah, yeah.
it's still there. But what I love also is that the caregiving aspect is, I think that the caregivers coming together and supporting one another and being able to navigate that, because it's not something that just affects just you. It affects each person a little differently. But can you talk a little bit about like how caregivers could kind of partner together just to build some support?
Yeah. When I first came here, because the second started our 15th month. And it doesn't seem like it's been that long, but you have a wonderful person here that does the counseling theta. And I think the first time she met me, she thought, oh my goodness, she's a handful. And I kind of sat back. I did my fair share of crying in the whole bit, but it's important because we can't do it ourselves. This journey does not end well for any of us. We have to acknowledge that this journey ends with them passing. So we have to make the most of every single day, moment, and time that we have with them. And I think what I discovered is that there's a couple new ones that have come in the last, say, 2 months. And we actually, the other two wives, went out to lunch and we sat for almost 2 hours talking because they have their own journey and a lot of it is very similar, but they also have to realize that they need to let it out, let it go. And you might have your relatives, you might have a sister, a brother, a child, or whatever. They are not you. They don't know what you're going through. But when you can sit with somebody else who's exactly in the same boat and you let your hair down and you breathe, and then you say, even if you're eating lunch, what was your start of this journey? What did you notice? Then it's like, oh, somebody does really get what I'm going through. And I now, for some of the people that I've talked to in these 15 months, I see the look on their face. I'm starting to know their loved ones. I give them a hug. I share the joy. And I think that for me, that might be what my purpose is right now. And I'm enjoying it.
I love the fact that you bring that up too. And I hear this a lot from families is that we have all these behind the scenes things, which is difficult. So, like bringing a loved one to the bathroom, bringing them to the doctor's appointments, those things that we have to do. But I've even noticed this when people come in and visit your family member again. You can actually sit down and enjoy those things. Can you give some people advice how do you find joy in those difficult moments? Like, it can be we can look at the negative and get sucked into that, but how do we find those positive sparkles throughout the day? Like, and maybe even some examples of some things that sparkled for you that you find joy in still.
Um, I think the fact that, like, even yesterday when I came, I try to bring him something from home, whether it be some fruit, things that I remember that he liked. And he remembered, like yesterday was apple slices and that. Well, they had lunch, and the one thing is he can't always remember how to feed himself. So the chef here is really good, and they make sure that they have a nutritious diet, but sometimes you just got to throw junk in there too, make him a little happy. Eat a little bit of that, you laugh about it. He's big into watching TV. He loves the oldies, Gunsmoke, the whole bit. So I'll kind of trick him and I'll say, okay, let's go do this, or let's go to the bathroom, and then you can sit down and watch your show. Well, then initially when you had to leave, that's a thing that a lot of people have trouble with. When you get up after you've had your visit, and I try to leave him in a positive note, sitting watching the stuff that he likes on TV. Hallmark Channel's been a biggie with Christmas. And I said, okay, I'll be back. I got to go do some errands. He's like, okay. And he just sits there, or he'll get up and he'll go walking. Initially, he thought he needed to come help me. And I'm like, oh, no, I got this, because then when I leave, he doesn't remember that I was there, but I remember that I was there. And initially, probably one of the hardest things was when you say, you need to give us at least a week. I gave him 2 weeks with him. He never was one that I know of that wanted to say, I don't belong here, or I want to go home, or start crying, or that. He does get agitated sometimes at night, but I'd say, look, let's go check out your bedroom. I brought you a new comforter for your bedroom, or the your daughter got you this dad dog, stuffed dog, and we want to put this on your bed, and that. And so he'll laugh, and then he'll say, but the ears on the dog are on backwards. And I'm like, yeah, but that was from a claw machine. And then we start laughing again. It, or the fact that I bring him, he wanted Lebkuchen, the German gingerbread. So I brought him, and I knew good and well yesterday not to leave that whole package. He ate 3 of them, and then he broke them in pieces, and he started hiding them where he could have a snack later. And I just started laughing again. And I'm like, they're not going to starve you. If you want it, they'll give you.
One thing I have to say is pretty awesome that I've noticed when you come in and visit, you are kind of an extension with the care team. It's like a partnership with the caregivers. Can you kind of share like how your relationship unfolds, and maybe the importance of that is having a good relationship with the community care staff?
Yeah.
Because I know that they love seeing you when you come in, and you guys kind of build each other up, which is really cool.
Well, the one thing that I think a lot of people forget is it's not all about you are hired to care for our loved one. You become and you treat our loved one like family. And I know that the ones that are here have done exactly that with him. They treat him as though he is a family member. The hugs, the smiles, they're so gracious with him, and they go out of their way for me too. But I also reciprocate in knowing that they are taking care of one of my most precious possessions that I have in life, and I would do anything for him. And I want them to know that I know it's hard for them, but I so appreciate everything that they do. And their heart is really in this. There isn't anybody here that I have any negativity with at all. They have been the best caregivers. They look out for him. It is a team effort, but again, you have, and that's what's important about people going and looking at facilities. You have to get that feel from the door when you come in. And then to go into the facility, especially when other people are there, when you see the interaction between the families, the caregivers, the clients, it makes a difference, because there's some places you go in, it's like, I wouldn't be in here for loving their money. But when I came in, it smells good. The food is good. The people are friendly. They always ask how you're doing. And it's not a fake concern. They genuinely want to know if you're okay. And if you're not, they've come up to me one time when I looked a little bit under the weather and said, "Are you okay? We want to make sure that you're okay." And I appreciate that. I think because of my medical background, I always tried to give 150%. And the staff here, I find that that's the case.
Debbie, one question I get a lot is how do I keep going out with my loved one in society? Like if I'm going to go to a restaurant or I'm going to go do something or a doctor's appointment, what kind of advice would you give to prepare for that, to make sure that we're ready for it, that there's some type of safeguard in place? What kind of advice or any examples that you've experienced could you give?
The first encounter I had, like with my father in law, was at a local hospital. And they actually had cards in the lobby that said, "I am with a patient who has cognitive impairment, and please be gentle with them or take your time. And I appreciate your help." So I carried those around a lot so that when we were out, if he got a little agitated, I had the card and I could just like show it. And I do know they have them here in the concierge area, which she's phenomenal. Restaurants were easy to navigate except for the bathrooms. Shopping was a whole nother ball of wax. The doctor that we had for rehab had me give him a list. And initially I would say, "Okay, I'm in this row. You see me standing right here. Go down and get this." And I would pick a box of cereal or something and I would give it to him on a Post-it note. I should have had stock in Post-it notes. They were all over the house. And he could initially do it. The rest of the time he couldn't. But I didn't stop giving it to him. I went with him. And it took us forever to shop at Publix. But you know what? It made it a pleasure because we were doing it together. And that's the whole thing, is they're still your loved one. You still want to do stuff with them. You don't want to alienate them. And, you know, this journey, how long I have, I don't know. But I know that I'm just going to take full reign of what we've been given, the deal that we've been dealt, and just love him till the very end.
And what I'm hearing from you too is that you can still do a lot of the things that you once could do, but there's a lot of modifications and changes. What was
Yep.
popping in my head is like bowling. So when I bowl with my kids, like I don't use
The
the
bumper
bumpers.
guards.
They need to put the bumper
Yeah.
guards up. But I feel like a lot of the things that I do hear families do is put up those safeguards. So yes, we're going to go. Maybe it's to the grocery store, like you said, but do aisle by aisle, or maybe it's even to a point where you're just having a conversation. Hey, what do you want to get? And then ordering them and having it shipped to the house where you can put stuff away, but keeping as independent as possible within like a safe realm. Um,
Right. You know, they can still fold the laundry. If they're home, they can still fold the laundry. They can still help load the washer. They can still go out under supervision and water the plants. It's stuff like that. But when all of a sudden there's an event that drastically changes the cognitive level of them, where they can't feed themselves, they don't know who you are. I mean, that's the saddest part, is the loss of recognition. I think, you know, I keep trying to, the hardest words are, "Do you remember?" Theta taught me this. "Do you remember?" Or "Did you forget?" And they don't remember and they have forgotten. And I still find myself stopping and going, "Oh, you remember so and so?" And it's like, no, he doesn't. So now the pictures are my thousand words. And I don't even bring up remember or forget. I just say, "Oh, we went here," and show them a picture. Like before it got really bad, this last time, we went to Mayberry RFD, Mount Airy, North Carolina. And he had a soda in the soda shop. And then we went to the place where they fry the bologna and he had a breakfast sandwich. And does he remember that? No, but I showed him the pictures and he's got one mounted in his room. And what he remembers is it's his cousin that went with us. That's Becky. And I'm like, yeah, that is. Doesn't remember me, but he does remember her. You have to be thankful for every little thing. And that's a blessing. And I called her and I said, guess what? He knows your picture every single time. Me?
Yeah.
No, no. But
What I
that's
love,
okay.
it's also the you bring up a great thing. It's not just about the information sharing. It's about the experience that that brings. So like sitting down and like you said, you positioned all those questions to be more like this is what it is. How are you feeling about it, or whatever it is. But it's not something specifically that's drilling down into questions. So more surface talk. But that feeling can really jog a lot of memories too, as well. Um,
Yeah.
what would be advice that you would give to people that are just entering into this? They just got a diagnosis, and where should they look for resources?
If it's a new diagnosis and they're still pretty cognitive with it, but you notice the changes in that, I would say first, a really good neurologist. You got to have that medical help to go. Second, I would say explain everything to your family and be upfront with them. I was given by my financial guys a book called Finding Grace in the Face of Dementia. Now, personally, I haven't finished reading it, but I made sure everybody in my family had it. They read it cover to cover. And I actually gave it to one of the newbies here, and she said, "Oh, that was phenomenal." And she sent it to her husband's sister. I think we all need to just get on the same page. You look around the house and you go, "Okay, I have to do this. I have to do that. I have to put a safety here. I have to do, put a safety there. I need to be cognizant that this is not safe and safe proof the house." That was the first thing. The second thing was to try not to change your lifestyle. Like if you go to church, but just know that you might want to sit on the end because if he gets a little bit agitated, you might want to get up and take him out. It was important to try to keep life as normal as we could. He liked to go for walks, so me not so much, but we would go for a walk, and then we would say, "Oh, look at this," or "Look at that," and he liked. Oh my gosh, I can't tell you how many frozen Cokes he drank, and Big Macs. That was it. So was it the healthiest diet? No. But I didn't care. He was happy. He ate. He fed himself. He knew how to suck through the straw. He can't do that now, but he enjoyed it. And I got pleasure out of watching him. The one thing I will say, and if you have a really good neurologist, he should have the contact information. It's important to get into a group. But then again, when you get into a group, because you're going to need it. They don't think they will. They need it. And the sooner they can start in some kind of counseling. I have counseling on my own, and I also have counseling here through Certus. I would not trade either one of them. I think that they have helped me tremendously. But also through that, there are places where you can take your loved one. The Brain Fitness Academy, they do 2 days a week from like 9 to 2. It's associated with the church in Winter Park. Phenomenal. And it gives you that time. Do you have to go to the doctor? Do you have to, go get your driver's license renewed? You don't want to have to drag them everywhere because number one, it's not comfortable for them. They don't like that stress and you don't like the stress of having to drag them with you. So planning is important. I found for me, I took a cork board in the house and I divided it into a month. And I picked every color of Post-it notes I could get. And I made the Post-it notes stick on every day of the month. Sunday was pink and Monday was yellow and Tuesday was blue. And I wrote everything for him so he knew what we were doing, where we were going, and what time it was happening. I have a magnetic board on my refrigerator. Same thing. I wrote all that up there. I gave him a checklist. We went down the checklist every day. I was a biggie on Amazon. He was into coloring stuff. We bought those fuzzy posters. I still have them. They're in the nursing office here. He gave one to her. We did all kinds of activities. Get a game. Sit down with them. Puzzles, big pieces. Because these are also part of those memories that you're going to enjoy later on. And while you're doing it and they're making a fuss, make them laugh. Because let's face it, life is full of challenges. We've been given challenges for whatever reason, and we have to turn them around and make them more positive.
One thing I love is I just saw this recently is they actually have online a program where you can upload a photo and it prints it into pictures of like grandkids or whatever, and they're large pieces. So as they put it together, like I've seen people do it and the light bulb goes off and they're like, these are my grandkids, or they're so cute. They might not know specifics, but a lot of times just that coming together and then it sparks that conversation.
The one thing I would say that in the beginning of all this, I would suggest that they make sure that they have their loved one have a really good physical in terms of vision. You have to be a little bit proactive and make sure that they have a good baseline. And I also would suggest that on your phone, because everybody's got their phone, take pictures of everything that they have, their Medicare card, their insurance card, a list of their drugs, so that because sometimes we get so stressed, we can't answer some of those questions. And you got to be able to pull it up right at, the spur of the moment and have it available.
And I gotta say, you gave really good advice about getting those things done earlier because research does show if you have a vision impairment or a hearing impairment, you actually have more dementia symptoms. So making sure
Right,
that we get those regularly, so when we can't communicate it, they're already in place.
right.
Debbie, what other kind of last things would you like to share? Maybe something we didn't cover, or something that you would want to share with people, just in closing of anything that we might have missed that you think that you would want to share.
I just think that you need to love one another. You need to be supportive. Families need to be supportive of their family members. You need to check on them. Yeah, it might be uncomfortable, but you will reap the benefits too, because if they're your family member, if they're your best friend, if they're, your neighbor, it all adds up and it makes us a better individual in the long run because we may be the next one.
And Debbie, you brought up such great points. So I just want to say thank you for your time. I think that the idea of how to go through this, one thing that I kept feeling surface is yes, there's issues, but there's opportunities and ways to do things. If we just shift
Yeah.
our way of thinking, we can still provide a great quality of life. So I want to say thank you for jumping on the show. And also thank you everybody for watching. I know information is power. So the idea behind this is to give resources out to people that really need it. So thank you for watching today. And once again, my name is Josh with the National Institute for Dementia Education. And Debbie, thank you for joining us today. I really
Oh,
appreciate it.
thank you for having me. And I really hope that this helps the next person that's on this journey.
Awesome. Thanks so much and have a great day, everybody.